Welcome to Shelby Cast. We're interviewing Grant
Bucher.
Last name
Bucher.
Grant Bucher, with Joseph Townsend as the moderator, and he's gonna be asking a bunch of questions. I'll ask a bunch of questions. It's really like informal, so you wanna go ahead and start it off, or?
One question I'm always asked in regards to in particular is why do you decide to run for Congress? Because I know Zent's seat was open, and so people sometimes ask, why didn't you decide to run for Zent's seat?
That's a great question. So the reason why I got into this race in the first place is an extremely specific spiritual calling. Politics has never been something that I've desired to get into. I'm very content in the construction industry, managing about $65 million worth of work right now for Wygand and for Shamball before that. And love that space, but felt a spiritual calling to get into this race in particular. When I contemplated others, the calling that I got was, no, that's too safe. You think you can win those on your own. And so that was fair about who I am. And Denny Zent's seat in particular was very interesting to me. I had a number of people that came to me and said, if you run for his open seat, we will throw money behind you. And so from a man's perspective and wisdom, that seemed like an obvious thing. But again, I didn't desire to get into this in the first place. So what I certainly didn't want to do is to go for that which I was not called to, if that's fair.
Yeah.
So is it typical campaign or politics, like climb the ladder stuff? No. I'm just jumping in the deep end.
So what is there that you think you're going to be able to do as congressman that you want to be able to do as state senator? What can I do as a congressman that I can't do as Denny Zent's case, a state rep? I think one of the primary things is that I get to address federal level issues. Our state government is quite good. We've had a good run since Mitch Daniels was governor. And I've gotten to know a lot more of the state reps. You go to church with Chris Judy and know Matt Lehman. Actually, Matt Lehman took over my father-in-law's old seat in Adams County. And just good conversations with those guys. But state government is good in Indiana. What Congress needs is renewal. They need people who can do the job and do the job well. They need people who are humble enough to say, our founders got it right. Let's do what they put in place rather than trying to come up with our own new forms of how we're going to be important and stuff. So we need a different type of person for that congressional role. We also need, I'm going to say, servant leadership in Congress as well, where again, we need people there who desire to serve the will of the people, not to make a name for themselves. And say what you may about me, but that is something that I wholeheartedly desire, is to make life better for other people, not for myself. And then what would your litmus test be for who you would vote for speaker? Because that's like one of the important roles that you would have. So.
Yeah. What do I care about the most? In who I'm going to vote for speaker, that is a great question. I want somebody who's actually willing to see problems and identify solutions to them. If all you're doing is saying, got to be Joe Biden, the Democrats, take back the Senate, like you're setting yourself up for 2 years of having your way. That's great, but we've got a country to govern, and I'd love to see it have another 248 years of life after its birthday this year. So we need to have more vision than just beat Joe Biden and the Democrats.
So, is there a specific name of somebody you would vote for speaker, or you think Speaker Johnson's doing a good job that you would vote for him again, or?
I would love to have some more dialogue with Speaker Johnson. When he first got in, I was really, really excited. I still like the guy. Some of the stuff that we've been passing, again, this omnibus legislation that's still going through, not breaking apart the different aid packages, I don't love. I want somebody who
would actually say, hey guys, committee's fine, whatever, but we're actually going to debate things on an individual basis on the floor. And if it can't withstand in itself and get the votes that it needs, then we don't need to pass it. But everything's going to be brought to debate on its own and has to withstand the rigors of debate on its own. If I can say that one more time.
Yeah.
Break it out. I want to know where everybody stands on Ukraine. I want to know where everybody stands on Israel. I want to know where everybody stands on our border. Make them force their hand a little bit. Make them vote on it. Because as I shared earlier today on WOWO, if you allow people to vote on multiple things at once, they have deniability about their stance on any particular issue. And if they have deniability, they have no accountability.
Yeah.
We need that accountability back.
So, I mean, you mentioned Israel and Ukraine. Do you see a difference between the two? And is your stance different on either one of them?
Yeah, good question too. Yes, it's different on those two. In my opinion, and I'm having more dialogue with people who think differently than me. I think it's important that we allow our worldviews to be challenged because our worldview becomes either refined or we change it. And so I'm having more dialogue with people on each of these issues. But as it stands today, I look at Russia, and I say it's an autocratic state ruled by a Machiavellian dictator. Not a good candidate for a friend, right? Do we want to trade with them? Sure. Not a good candidate for a friend. I look at Ukraine, and in my opinion, they are an autocratic state ruled by a Machiavellian dictator. Again, not a great candidate for a friend. There's the whole premise of the enemy of my enemy is my friend type thing. I think George Washington and Monroe and those guys would say a little bit like, stay out of other man's affairs. And I kind of lean towards that in the Ukrainian situation where we'd be better served just tell the two, get the peace. We need peace again in the globe. Figure it out, and because right now with all the money that we're sending over there, we're just perpetuating this thing, and ultimately the people that pay for it are the Russians on the front lines, the Ukrainians on the front lines, and the Americans funding the thing. My heart goes out to the people of Ukraine. It really, really does. Your tax dollars should not. Israel, it's different. People talk about how their biblical worldview says that we need to be an ally to Israel, and I'm like, I don't know. Like to an extent, like we are the body. Like the church is now God's chosen people, right? We've been grafted into that. Do I have respect and relationship with the people of Israel? Absolutely. But the thing is, why they're different is we've got a similar paideia to them. We've got a similar worldview, and that is that God is the God of the universe and that he's on the throne, right? And we revere him, okay? They also value democracy and freedom. And so they are an ally from all the values that we've got in our states. They share that same worldview. They share those values. And they're in an incredibly unstable portion of the world, right? I like having Israel right there at the heart of, you look at the map of Islamic nations, and they are just right in the center. And to an extent, they're just saying, let us do our job. Let us exist. Let us handle this the way that we know how to handle it. And for us as Americans to go into Ukraine, or us as Americans to go into Israel and say, let us figure out how to work this out for you. Like, we just can't understand. The Ukrainian-Russian relationship goes back thousands of years. Israel and Islamic relationship goes back thousands of years. Our history does not. We don't understand it. So, to an extent, I believe that we need to have a more hands-off approach. Now, again, as I shared at the beginning, I'm always having my worldview challenged, right? Somebody can come and present evidence to me that says this is absolutely why we need to be involved in that, and I would entertain it, and I'd love to learn and communicate and teach others too, because as a people we need to become better informed, and I want to have all the information before I make a decision.
So, are you saying, so you're not sure yet, or not quite sure on where you stand with Israel? Like, should we support, because we're going to go one way or another, so if you went to Congress, you'd have to vote. I mean,
Yeah.
because you're going to the House, so you're control of funding, right? So if say you got elected,
Mhm.
and then the bill comes, and you have to decide on voting for more funding or no funding, or no more funding for we'll keep it to Israel because
Sure.
Ukraine's a no-brainer. Like I don't understand why we funded their Social Security yet. Ours is like, but so like funding Israel, would you vote to fund it, or would you want to defund it and stay out of it? Like,
Okay.
sorry.
Good question. Nope. With are we live?
Yeah, really.
Okay. With Israel, if the bill came across and it was a clean bill, right? It was supporting these things for Israel and it made sense.
Yeah.
Sure, I'd be in favor of it. I think it's because it's a talking point and it almost makes me sick at this point to say it, but we need to secure our border too, right? And so that would be a higher priority than Israel's border. But there too, I think we need, America's position should be to do what's in the best interests of America, and that is stability within the world.
Yeah.
If eliminating Hamas is what brings better stability in the world, I'm for it, right? If it's saying, guys, enough, it's time for peace, then okay for that too. But again, I think the hurts, the depths of feelings between those two entities goes back far, far further than what we're going to ever understand as a people. Thanks for clearing. Yeah.
Okay, so bringing it to the border. So go to Congress because Indiana has an immigration problem as well because they're busing immigrants to places like Seymour, Warsaw, or even in Seymour. Last I read, they kind of defeated the bill or whatever they were pushing, the agreement between the I forget what the business is called, but basically they were building housing and they were busing immigrants up there and making deals with the local businesses to hire these immigrants that they were busing up there. So because the population, I guess, reading from what I was reading, skyrocketed from like a low number. It was relatively stagnant. And then once immigration, I think Seymour went up to they have 20,000 or more, something like that now, in a short amount of time, just a few years. So what would you do to stem that? And it's not just Indiana; it's going all through. And we can tie this into China later. But what kind of stuff would you support in stemming that flow of illegal, and then dealing with the ones here? So I guess that's 2 questions. Sorry.
No, that's a great question. Ultimately, our border needs to be secure, right? It is not good for anybody for the border to be wide open. Not good for anybody holistically, right? One individual or 2 individuals, it could be good for them. But right now, the issues that we've got, in addition to people coming over, is those same people getting trafficked. Those people, this slavery concept again is it's real, and it's going to continue to be real as long as people don't have identities when they come here. So we need to secure the border. How do we do that? Number one, Congress needs to do its job, use the purse strings, punish the executive branch financially until the executive branch agrees to secure the border. And keep punishing them until they secure the border. Whether it's finishing a wall, I think that's important. Using force, Pascal says, law without force is impotent. At some point, there's going to be a hard slam shut on this door, and people are going to get hurt. It's better to do it sooner than later. As I share with my boys, if you've got to bite the head off a bullfrog, it's best to do it in the morning because otherwise you're just going to be thinking about it and pondering all day long and still have to do it at the end of the day. But so we need to shut off the flow of people coming across the border. However, on the flip side, I recognize we need immigration. The United States can't thrive without immigration. We're not repopulating at the rate necessary to sustain us. So we need it. It just needs to be legally, and it needs to be with assimilation. As people come, they need to become part of America, and and that is adopting our customs, our culture, etc., becoming part of this process. But we've got a huge problem in immigration. I mean, I remember this thing being a talking point whenever I was a kid, which suggests to me that nobody's actually serious about fixing immigration. They just want it to be able to campaign on it 2 years or 4 years later. And so if I was king of Congress for the day, I would just put a full moratorium on immigration. Nobody's allowed in, period. Maybe then we'd actually wake people up to the problem and get people serious about addressing the issue again. In construction, when I'm working in manufacturing plants, if we've got a problem in the plant, we don't just let it perpetuate and deal with warranty issues on the back end. We shut the place down, we get all hands on deck, you address the problem, you open back up, you flow through, right? So is that a simplification of immigration? Sure, but that's what it's going to take, is getting people serious about actually fixing the problem for once and for all. So did I answer all your questions on that?
Yeah, pretty much. What do you think about, what do you think about the fact that, so congressional seats are actually being, being added and counting illegal immigrants so parties are getting more seats based on those bodies that are illegal.
Yeah.
So how would you fix that, and would you support, what kind of punishment should it be for people who help push that they're basically cheating, because they're drowning out American voices with foreign voices, you know what I mean? So how would you address the people who in large part made this possible?
Good question. I think that it would be great to have all of in that sense. It creates logistical issues, but add the population to the middle states, right, that are more conservative. Pick up some seats, backfire that plan on them, right? There's obviously a ploy for why people are doing this. And I was talking with somebody the other day, allowing something like this to happen is a simple thing not to allow, right? Going and cheating in the election and voting multiple times is a very simple thing not to do. It violates our conscience. It should violate everybody's conscience. It's pretty black and white. And with it, you are robbing the sanctity of elections with your neighbors, with your co-Americans. Let's look at each other as one people again. I think that the punishments should be extremely severe, to the point where, there's eye for an eye, hand for a hand type stuff, but you're violating the tenets of freedom and free and fair elections. I don't know that the punishment could be severe enough for something that is so unnecessary. So I'd be an advocate for whatever punishment came across my desk is, here's what we're going to do with it. And to the people who are responsible for keeping the borders open, and by the way, they're always going to point fingers at somebody else and have somebody else as the fall guy. But to those people, they have totally maligned the entire nation, and they need to be shamed and punished severely.
Because in Seymour and I think Warsaw, because there's a plan. There's 3 cities that were incorporated in. But I know Seymour was a Republican governor, and then I know that Warsaw, which I'm not sure. I was trying to find it, but I couldn't figure out if the thing happened while he was in office. So if he's not, it's not fair to blame him for it. But if he was incorporated in that plan, then it's a bipartisan assault on freedom. Most of this wouldn't even be possible if it wasn't for Congress. You know what I mean? Because you can't. Republicans. Was it the House that they have? And they still get stuff through all the time. Even when Trump was with the Obamacare or whatever, they couldn't repeal it. And it seems like whenever we have a majority, we can never repeal anything. So, yeah, so there should be I agree, there should be a severe punishment for betraying your country, or that's how I would put it, because you really are selling it out for, power, pretty much.
Indeed.
So, sorry.
No, I appreciate your views on it too.
Well, one of the things you were talking about in regards to labor, so since you're in the construction industry, do you notice issue with labor?
Oh, absolutely. On a project up in Steuben County at the Judicial Center, we planned the entire project around the tile guys because there's like 3.5 of them in all of Northeast Indiana. But you know what? There is, from a Latino standpoint, I know it's all kinds of people coming across the border right now, but from Latino culture, like, I value a lot of what they value. They value faith, they value family, they value hard work. And I left my job site tonight at about 6 o'clock, and guess who was still there?
Then,
It was the Latino guys they're working hard to provide for their families, and I commend that, and I want to encourage people to come here legally. We need you legally, but yeah.
well, because what I've noticed, so I don't really deal with the Latino community as much. I mean, I do have a couple, but my main thing is I get a lot of them from India, and they'll be on an asylum visa, and they'll have the asylum visa for like 20 years, and they can never become a citizen. So they're always here legally. They just have to keep renewing their asylum visa, but the process seems to be like a lot harder for them to end up becoming citizens. So they're always here legally, but they can just never become the citizen. So I think I don't know the answer, but it just seems like that's what I notice is that it's very expensive for them because every 6 months they have to fly back to India and then renew their asylum visa. So yeah, it's
Heaven forbid we fix immigration, but I share with you a quick statistic, and the first number I'm going to get wrong, but I looked on Facebook, and the search that I did was how many times this hashtag build the wall come up, and it was 186,000, I believe. That's the number of times it came up. Then I looked up hashtag reform immigration, 6 times. So it's just, I gotta believe this is a political talking point and that we aren't serious about correcting it because it's a political talking point.
yeah.
Which I do agree that we should reform It's very hard to get here if you're from certain countries. I mean, like not even like some of the Asian countries that aren't even like Chinese, like some of them are adversaries to China, but it's still hard to come here from those countries. So, and I've actually seen the process. The internet is slow, but it's still going, still working. But sorry. So I agree it needs to be reformed so that people don't have to like sneak in. They can get a fair chance at getting in,
And if you bring a certification, a degree, like, by all means, do the testing here as well. Confirm that you're not lying about it, and go to the front of the line. America's always been about excellence. We shouldn't be shy about it. We shouldn't think that that's a bad thing. We should strive for it, and we should all strive to be better in whatever area of life we do or in. There was a quote the other night that was from Abraham Lincoln, but kind of sounded like Dr. Seuss too. Is whatever you are, be a good one. We need that kind of excellence to abound again today.
Yeah, it's true.
What else?
Anything else?
Well, I mean, when it comes to the Second Amendment, how do you strengthen it when liberals don't actually believe in the Second Amendment?
Sure. So the thing about the Constitution is that a lot of it has to do with preservation. We need to maintain that which we have been granted, and so you need to stand opposed to infringement upon Second Amendment rights. Right, shall not infringe is right there. But I think you need to have rational discourse with people as well, because then you get to at least draw out the fallacies in arguments. And so when you talk to somebody, you could show that, I guess what we need to do with gun violence in this nation is not get rid of the guns. The thing that we need to do is to restore virtue in the people. We have a lack of value for life. This is a cultural thing that we struggle with from an abortion standpoint, right? We don't value life at that point. And then as we grow, we get, I just see it in and day out where people are so much more accustomed to not valuing life, not valuing other people. And that is what will lead us ultimately to people committing horrible crimes against one another using a tool, a gun. Does that mean just because a gun's not bad that I want my children around them? No, I've got a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old. We are working with Nerf right now to learn some principles. You know, we're not in the 22 caliber or 20 range yet, and certainly not anything more than that. But we've got to respect the tool. But the same way, I'm not putting a chainsaw in my kids' hands, right?
Yeah.
There's some maturity that needs to come with the use of them. So how do we? You asked the question again. How do we protect Second Amendment rights whenever somebody's so adverse to having that right? And again, I believe it's rational discourse, calling out worldview, and then saying let's address the root level issue. Let's not address the political hot button topic, and perhaps then we'll actually fix something.
Well, I mean, along the same lines with, I guess, women in or men in women's sports, it's like, how do you address it when they're so dead set on it, no matter what science says, you know?
Yeah. So I think the Bible would call it a reprobate mind. And in those cases, when you have the authority to do so, it needs to be a flat no, right? My children, they want to debate and challenge me on things, and sometimes it's good and healthy. Sometimes they don't understand the way that the world is ordered. And I'm not saying man's ordering. I'm saying things that are of nature, things that are of nature and nature's God, that we don't get to choose on. In those cases, it just needs to be a flat no. So again, we need to return to virtue as a people, as I shared beforehand. Of a Congress, they cannot legislate goodness, right? Laws punish badness. They don't inspire goodness. We need people, we need communities, we need churches to step up and be that inspiration for goodness again. In our schools, it would be incredible if we could get God back in schools. We need him. We've tried the alternative, and I'm going to say people are less happy today than they ever have been. These progressive experiments with, hey, let's separate humanity from divine order is not working. It's not. And I'm so confident in it, I'd be willing to say, hey, let's set up 2 different school systems, public school system, Colorado, California, whatever, wherever. You guys can take a school system and turn it completely woke. But here in Northeast Indiana, we get to take a school system, we get to reintroduce God into it, and we get to pursue a classical Christian education, something that my work at Hillsdale College has made me more familiar with. And we're going to compare the two after a generation, and whichever one wins out, that's going to be the model. And I am so confident, short of tainting test results, which, but I'm so confident that the students that come from the classical Christian school and have a eternal view on the world are going to excel and go past, because it's laws of nature that you can't fool, you can't trick. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's where I'm at on that.
I agree.
I'm getting really good at this political thing, Joe, where you ask a short question and I take 5 to 10 minutes to answer it. So we can be here all night.
Audio on the live is kind of messed up with us. So this is my last question. So China, given like China is our enemy, there's no amount of us trying to, placate them is going to make peace.
No.
And they're setting themselves up in a position to replace us and take us over. In South America, they've got ties, and that's where a lot of the flood of the Chinese are coming from. And they're allies with some of the South American countries, so they can fly there, get visas, and then they're also building a bridge down in South America that would connect it to Colombia, I think. I have to look again, but which would basically make a straight path up to the U.S. And and then California, California is basically a Chinese state now. The way they had their first voters board. It was a Hong Kong woman was voted on. She's not a citizen. Voted onto their voters board or whatever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that China does what it does is through immigration. It's one, they do it through numbers. So like they'll flood places with Chinese, and then once they get to a certain level, then that's how they take over a government or that local government and change things. And then and then with the, I forget what it is, BRICS as well, as it's got a lot of the South American countries, a lot of African countries, Russia, and they're talking about creating a gold standard currency, which they don't have, like they're not in position to implement yet. But if they did switch, like it basically ruined the United States, because all that money that from those other countries, if they went off our money, that's the only thing that keeps us afloat, is that the other countries play the same, like we all pretend the dollar's worth something. So if they did switch, like the inflation here would just be astronomical. So how would you? What policies would you support in addressing China? And because they're like, we're going over China regardless of who's in office. Eventually, that's just how China does it. And if they can do it without firing a shot, they will. But they fund the woke stuff in our schools. They give millions, probably billions of dollars. Who knows? Because only some of it, until recently, it had to been reported. So like, if you could, what policies would you support to combat China? Before war, and then if we had to go to war, would you support actually going to war with China? Not necessarily under this administration. Like I wouldn't want to fight for this administration, especially since he's taking money from China. So are several people from both Republican and Democrats have been shown that their businesses are influenced by China, because Mitch McConnell, his wife, who's she's an Asian lady, her family owns that shipping company, and they get special deals from China.
Facts, but the facts are the facts. It's interesting you mentioned that there are people from both parties. So let's be fair. Who are some of the Republicans that in your research you found out are a little on the dirty side when it comes to playing games with China and letting them win?
Well, chief among them would be the Republican leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell's married to Elaine Chao, who was the transportation secretary in the Trump administration. Her family has a shipping business, a very successful shipping business, and I would argue largely because the Chinese government has done that business a lot of favors. So they have these large cargo ships, the ones that are sitting off the coast of California right now.
With everybody's Christmas gifts on them?
Still, exactly. Those ships are the kinds of ships that the Chao family use. Their ships are all built by the Chinese State Shipbuilding Corporation. The construction of those ships is all financed by Chinese State Bank, hundreds of millions of dollars. The crews are generally provided by the Chinese government, and most of the contracts of the goods they ship around the Asia-Pacific region come from the Chinese government. So what they have is leverage. If Mitch McConnell were to take action as the Senate leader that China was really angry about, they could destroy the family business overnight. And that's exactly the kind of relationship China wants when they strike these bargains with America's political leaders.
And I can't prove that he's, voted on certain things, in there, but, and then, Nancy Pelosi, that's her husband. I can't think of what her name is, but another famous tip. She's really old, like really old.
That's a lot of Congress.
Huh?
That's a lot of Congress, really.
Yeah. But like a lot of people in Congress have been bought off. So like, what policies would you support in addressing China, I guess?
Sure. There's a lot there and a lot to unpack. But I think at the heart of it, and again, I'm passionate about addressing root level things and going from there. At the heart of it, we've got to be proud of what we have here in America. Because if we're not, then there's going to be no willingness to defend it. So with that, and I say like with America's being sustained versus a Chinese influence of it, you got to look at the kind of campaign that it is up front. And I guess I would tend to think that this is more of a siege warfare thing, where it's a long, drawn-out process, trying to demoralize the other side or get them to toss their principles aside. And if they do either one of those things, then you have the opportunity to win and turn them. But if if we are united, brother to brother, friend to friend, neighbor to neighbor, even if we think very differently than each other, and we do, then we'll have something that's special and worth fighting for, worth enduring for, as we get outside pressures all over. If it's not China, it's going to be the next nation, right? China is just the greatest of the military threats. They're clearly the greatest military threat for the United States today. So what are the policies that I would endorse for trying to combat that threat? I think some of the stuff that we've done here in Indiana and tried to limit Chinese influence in purchasing of our land, I think that's a fine thing. You know, we like to it's okay to exclude people. We want to exclude 7.5 billion people from our country. It's okay to exclude them from buying property in our nation. Our Constitution does not cover people who live in China, right? So I think that would be one thing is reducing the amount of assets that they're able to purchase. When I worked for Shambaugh & Son, I was working in Casa Grande on a yogurt plant, but up just the way, just north of Phoenix, we were building Taiwan Semiconductor. Getting our manufacturing in place to be more self-reliant, that's critical, and I'm an advocate for doing that as well. I know Congress put in some seed money in that, but it got parlayed into billions and billions and billions worth of investment after that. So whenever you can do a model like that is proven to work, do it. I think COVID showed us how fragile our supply chains were and how dependent we were on China. And so again, redomesticating jobs is a good thing, and it's going to build up the strength of our middle class as well. And I think that's important, right? We've got this class gap that continues to grow, and a lot of that is because you can, back in honestly the 80s is when we cashed a big check on our kids' future, on my future, on your future. Whenever we exported so much, we found a cheap pool of labor elsewhere in the world, and guess what? It was great for those who cashed in on it in the 80s. Now, not so good.
Yeah.
I think we're learning, I hope we learn from history a little bit, and we say it's not a good thing to export everything. Let's build it at home. Let's pay a little bit extra for it. The amount, like a thermostat is an example. If you go buy a $15 thermostat from Lowe's or Home Depot, you could pay 50 cents more and have it made in America.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, don't quote me on those exact numbers because those aren't right. But it's like that minor, but we export it because, hey, you know what, the next guy's going to do it. I'm going off, but another thing to do from an economic standpoint is to say to any business who wants to go do business outside the United States, that's fine, but factor in security, factor in thought theft into your business model, because the taxpayers, we're not paying for it.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to go produce something in China, by all means, but you put up your own security detail. The government's not backing you. If you want to do it in Africa, that's great, but you put in your own. You know, like those things. We need companies. We like the free markets, right? We say we do anyway.
Yeah.
So the free markets need to pay for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Is there, if you had something more specific that you wanted me to dive into, I'm more than happy to, but.
No, I mean, like, I just kind of picking your brain on it because a lot of people they don't see how far, like, because a lot of people don't think China's the threat that it is yet. But the more you dig into it and you see all the things that they're allowed to do, all the people who have China's, because they invest in the elites, they invest in the people in Congress and the president. They and not just here in South America, like they're basically telling them that, like, because a lot of them still have their like a lot more native roots, and here because a lot of them come here and they work on pot farms on reserves, Native American reserves and stuff. But they basically tell them down there that they're Chinese, that the ones that came across the land bridge and that settled here, they were all Chinese, and that's how they do it. And then they go to like digs and stuff, and then because they're real big into it, and then they'll be like, oh, see, this pottery is ancient Chinese, and then you guys are us. The white people came, and that's how they kind of try to build a because they set the conditions. And that's something that like conservatives in the long run has been like really bad at addressing, because the left is really the same way, because they have that same kind of ideology. Even progressives, they don't care about now, but their plan is for 100 years from now, and that's how they move. Whereas conservatives, we try to address it in the moment, or like we put band-aids on stuff.
As conservatives, we play whack-a-mole.
Yep.
Right? We don't know what the next thing is, but we're going to wait for it to pop up, and then we're going to try to smack it down as best as we can. Where in the long run, we forget what we're doing in the first place. I went on the GOP website just today, and I was like, what's the vision? What is the vision for what our nation could be and should be? And you know what? A lot of it is keep the majority of the Congress, win back the Senate, get Donald Trump back in office. And it's like, fine, those are tools. But then what? You know, it talks about fiscal conservatism, and it talks about maintaining our American values. It's like, what are those? Define them. Yeah. So if we've got a vision, if we've got a definition, if we've got a direction, perhaps then we can row together. But right now, we're just rowing upstream with no destination in mind. Yeah. Back to a strong America.
Yeah.
Sure. But where? What point in history are we defining? What we need to do is recognize that humans are fallible, and that we need a government that's in place to protect our freedoms, that is considers that people are fallible, and that's our Constitution. Our founders, they read Plato, they read Socrates, they knew about governments. They knew a lot about governments, but what they had that the Romans and the Greeks didn't have is they had Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so then now they know humans and human nature as well, and how life is best lived as Jesus displayed for him when he walked this earth before he died and ultimately resurrected. But they put those principles in place and said, based on this, we can have good government. Mm-hmm. This is how people behave when they behave well. This is how they behave when they behave badly. Let's put up a constitution that is a wide boulevard and high curbs, and pit one branch of government and one power against another. And that's how we'll have a sensible, free people. Yeah. We've lost our vision for that and just said, we've got to beat the Democrats. We've got to beat the Democrats. Yeah. And you know what? After a while, that becomes less and less inspiring. And so people say, what's it all worth? Why is it even worth fighting for?
Well,
and it is. Believe me, it is.
Well, the Democrats control the schools, a lot of them. And then we even had that story like not too many months ago where that school told that kid he couldn't fly. His flag was pretty much offensive, and he couldn't fly his flag on his truck.
Yeah.
But
you know the end of that story?
eventually they had to let him, and then they wrapped the.
Yeah. I love that.
It was awesome. But like, and that's the thing is they control the schools and they basically make your kids foreigners. Like the ideology that they in place, and that's why I say like from public schools, woke stuff should be banned because they have a full monopoly on it, and you can't even open up the Bible in a class and not get yelled at. But their religion, because wokeness is religion, or neo-Marx, whatever you want to call it. That's basically what it is. But how would you address this school system? Because even was it South Penn, one of the administrators admitted that like they still teach it, even though, because I know Indiana tried to pass a bill saying that you could it's like critical race theory. And banning it from schools, but teachers still say, like teachers admit that they still teach it in just different ways.
Yeah, they write it in the books.
Yeah.
Okay, what would I do there from an education standpoint? I think one of the first things that we need to do is get rid of the Department of Education at the federal level. People that I've talked to, teachers that I've talked to, they say, hey, I want to make sure that my kids are getting the same education in Indiana as they would in Texas, as they would in Oklahoma, as they would in California. I get it, good point, but reality is the people that I've talked to who have moved between multiple different states end up ahead or behind wherever they go. Regardless of how standardized we try to make things, kids are not getting equal educations from one school down the street to another school, much less from one state to another state. And so the only thing that we are standardizing is mediocrity from when we dictate from the federal level. So I would be an advocate for abolishing the Department of Education, push it back down to the states. If the states want to have a Department of Education, that's completely up to them. But I've talked with a lot of teachers, a lot of good teachers, a lot of non-union teachers, and some union teachers as well, who are like, I don't like what our state is pushing right now. And so then at that point, let's push it down to the local level, right? We elect school boards. Let's let them do their job. We've got so much technology. They can learn what the best practices are elsewhere. And if our teachers and our administrators aren't so busy filling out paperwork and doing standardized testing that they can focus on educating children and being innovative in education, or being, in my preference, more classical in education, then maybe, just maybe, we'll see a turn and the next generation will be better off than the generation prior to it from an education standpoint. I'm proudly a publicly educated kid. I went through Norwell High School, and it was a tremendous experience for me. I got to spend time with a lot of classmates who from the same walk of life, and we had diversity in our walks of life as well, from a just socioeconomic standpoint. And I've done fine for myself. But do you know what has impacted my life greater than anything that my teachers taught me? That would be my faith in Jesus Christ, number one. That has been huge in helping to orient my worldview. And because of it, I'm driven. I'm driven to serve people and work hard. But it's also growing up in a home where mom and dad stayed together. Like that, that's huge. That was a huge. I didn't fathom as a kid how much of a leg up I had on others. Because of that. So, that helped me. I wasn't concerned about my parents. And so I was able to focus on learning and being a kid and being an athlete and getting involved in a bunch of things. One thing that my dad shared with me. This is probably really morbid. It is morbid to say. But I remember a time as a kid where we posed the no good answer question to him. Dad, if the house was on fire and you could save one person in the family, it's me and 3 brothers and mom, you could save one person, who would it be? Just trying to see if we can figure out his favorite. He didn't hesitate. He said, your mom. And I was like, I'm not sure if I should be hurt right now or if I should be excited. You know what? That has stuck with me ever since. And from that moment forward, I had no concern that Dad was going to be there at night.
Yeah.
And that freed me up. We need virtue. We need men to step up again, to be leaders in their families.
Yeah.
We need them to provide for their children, and we need people to stay together. Marriage is easy? Is marriage easy? Absolutely not. It is.
No.
It is the most difficult, most sanctifying, most blessed, most amazing thing that I've been a part of in my life. Not easy, but when you have commitment, it is good not only for you, but it's good for your children as well. That you asked about education, I got on a whole tangent there,
Yeah.
but
Was there anything you want to say to close?
yeah, we should wrap this up. I guess the thing that I would really challenge people who are going to be at the polls here tomorrow or by May 7th, you should definitely get to the polls. What I really encourage you to ask is not so much, why does Grant Bucher think he's the best candidate for this job? But I'd ask you to ask yourselves, when you go to vote, what do you want your voice in Congress to sound like? Do you want it to be part of the noise? Or do you want it to bring common sense solutions and inspire renewal? With that, I'll leave you. Would love for you to follow along BucherForUs.com or Facebook or Instagram, and by all means, tell people about all 8 candidates running on the Republican side, the 2 on the Democratic side for Congress, and then up and down the ballot. We need, as a people, we need to be wiser, we need to be more informed. So, God bless you and have a great evening, or day, or whenever you're watching. Yeah.